Hi, and welcome to Watch It Played. My name is Rodney Smith, and in this video, we're going to learn the 2 to 6 player game, K-Pop Demon Hunters Battle for the Spotlight, based on Netflix's K-Pop Demon Hunters. The game is designed by Walid Marouf and based on the original love letter designed by Seiji Kanai and published by Z-Man Games, who helped sponsor this video. Pick your team and get ready for a battle of the K-pop stars as Huntrix and the Saja boys take to the stage. Did I watch the movie to prepare for this video? You bet your little soda pop I did. So join me at the table and let's learn how to play. To set up, put this contest board in the center of the play area with these double-sided cheer tokens nearby with either side face up, and this contest marker added to the spot for it here on the board. These are the Huntrix and Saja Boy reference cards. Collect an amount of them equal to your number of players divided evenly by type. We'll set up a 4-player game in this video, so we'd collect 2 of each type and return the leftovers to the box. Each person in the game will get one of these, and players with the same type of reference are on the same team. So here we have a team of 2 Huntrix players and a team of 2 Saja Boy players. If you have an odd number of players, take cards that create teams that are as even as possible. This means, for example, with 5 players, you'd keep either 3 Huntrix and 2 Saja Boy references, or 2 Huntrix and 3 Saja Boys. Either way, once you have the required cards, in our case, with a 4-player game, 2 of each person selects one, or you can shuffle and deal them out randomly. Once players are assigned their teams, have them sit in alternating positions around the table, so in our 4-player game, it might look like this. Again, if you have an odd number of players, alternate positions as much as possible. If one of the teams has fewer members than the other, which will happen in 3 or 5-player games, flip this bonus token to the side showing the team with fewer players and give it to any one of the players on that team. This bonus token is not used in 2 or 4-player games. The cards with these backs are known as the characters. If you have a 2 or 3-player game, remove the 4 labeled as fan here, returning them to the box. Otherwise, shuffle all of the characters together into a face-down deck within reach of the players, dealing 1 off to the side as a backstage card. Then deal each person 1 card from the deck. You can look at your own card, but keep it a secret from the other players. Then the person who most recently went to a concert becomes the first player, or you can just pick someone randomly. And that's the setup. K-Pop Demon Hunters Battle for the Spotlight is played over a series of rounds. During a round, you'll take turns drawing and playing character cards which have values from 0 to 8 in their top left-hand corner and an effect printed at their bottom. But remember, if you have a game with 2 or 3 players, you do not include the value 0 characters. The effects do various things, but many help you move this contest marker back and forth along this track. These symbols represent the Huntrix team, while these represent the Saja boys. You'll be trying to keep the marker as far along your team's side of the track as possible, which will help you earn more of these cheer tokens at the end of the round, as we'll learn later. The first team to earn 5 or more cheer tokens wins the game. You'll also be trying to ensure that you are the player with the highest valued card in your hand at the end of the round, as that will also help you move the contest marker on the track, as we'll see. During a round, you'll take turns, starting with the first player and then going clockwise around and around the table. And on your turn, you always start by drawing 1 card from the deck and adding it to your hand. You then pick one of the cards you're holding to play face up onto the table where everyone can see it. The card you choose will have a printed effect in this area, which you'll read out loud and resolve. Then after, the card is put face up into what is known as a personal discard area that you keep in front of yourself. This means after each of your turns, you'll have a growing number of cards face up in front of you, and it's important everyone can see them, so make sure none are hidden, though it's okay if they overlap like this. We'll go over the various effects in a moment, but after drawing and playing a card, The next person in clockwise order draws a card from the deck, playing one of the two cards they're now holding, and so on. With that understood, let's go over all the different characters and the effects they provide when played from your hand. This is Mystery, and there are two copies of this character in the deck. When played, you choose any person from the other team, and they must secretly show you their hand. Then you check to see if the card that's still in your hand has a higher value than the one they showed you. So as an example, if I start my turn by drawing a card and then I choose Mystery to play, picking the person here as the target of the effect, they must secretly show me their hand. And then I check to see if the card in my hand is higher. I do not show it, I just privately check. If my card is the same value or lower than theirs, nothing happens. However, if my card had a higher value than theirs, then as it says here, I would now resolve this contest marker symbol. Anytime an effect allows you to resolve this symbol, you move the contest marker one space towards your team's end of the track. When it first leaves this space, it goes to the closest one with your team's symbol. So if I was on the Huntrix team resolving this effect, it would go here. After it leaves this space, the marker will just stay on these spaces. So if the Saja boys were resolving the contest marker later, they'd move this towards their side going here. I should mention, whether players are on the same or different teams, you can never share information about the cards in your hand unless an effect forces you to. That said, you must still be honest. When I checked to see if my card was higher than this player's, although I do not show my card to anyone, I cannot pretend that my card has a higher value if it does not. So, no cheating. Cheaters are jerks. Next up, we have Romance, and there are two copies of this character in the deck. When played, you secretly look at the backstage card, and then after, you can choose to swap it with the card you still have in your hand. Remember, during setup, we dealt one card to the side known as the backstage card. So when resolving this effect, we'd secretly look at it, and then either put it back or exchange it with the card we're currently holding. All right, here's Zoey. There are two copies of this card, and when resolving her effect, you pick any one of your teammates and secretly look at their hand. Or you can look at the backstage card instead. If the card you look at is a 5 or higher, advance the marker on the contest board one space towards your side. I'm not going to say this every time, but just as a reminder, if you're the player with this bonus token in a game where the teams are not even, anytime you'd advance the contest marker, remember to advance it one extra time. Here we have Bobby, and there are 4 copies of him in the deck. When played, you pick any other person at the table and guess the value of the card they're holding, but your guess must be a number from 2 to 8. The person you target can be someone on your own team or the other team. So as an example, let's say I played Bobby and I picked this opponent and chose the number 6. If they're not holding a 6, they just say, I don't have it. Nothing happens and my turn would be over. Keep in mind, they do not show anyone what they are holding. But again, they must be honest. On the other hand, if they were holding the 6, they would have to say so. In that case, the rest of Bobby's effect would resolve, and it says here, if correct, advance on the contest board. After, the person that was targeted shuffles the card they were holding into the deck and draws a new one. Again, this part only happens if the person playing Bobby guessed correctly. So, if I guessed that this player had a 6, and they did, then I would move the contest marker in my team's direction, and then this player would shuffle the 6 that they had into the deck, and then they would draw a new card. As turns go on and cards are taken from the deck, eventually it might be empty. If it is empty, when a player needs to shuffle their card back into the deck and draw a new one because of Bobby's effect, they instead take the backstage card and put the card they were holding into its place. Next up, let's take a look at Mira. There are 2 copies of this card, and when resolving her effect, you pick any other player. They discard their hand and draw a new one, But if they discarded a Saja Boy, you advance on the contest board one space towards your team's end. A Saja Boy card is any character with a pink border and this symbol in its top left-hand corner. One with a purple border and this symbol is a Huntrix character. The fan card, which has this symbol, is not a Saja Boy or Huntrix character. So if I played Mira and targeted this person, they would put the card in their hand into their personal discard area without resolving its effect. And then they draw a new card from the deck. Since they got rid of a Saja Boy in this example, I'd also move this marker further towards my team's side. If Mira's effect makes a player discard a card, but there are none left in the deck for that person to draw from, they take the backstage card instead. There are 2 copies of this baby character in the deck, and when resolved, you pick any other player and take the card in their hand. They'll draw a new card, but if the one you took from them is a 5 or higher, you advance towards your team's side of the contest board, and then you put one card from your hand onto the top of the deck. So again, you can pick any player, including someone on your own team. You then take their hand from them, and if it's a 5 or higher, you advance the contest marker. But either way, you add the card to your hand without showing anyone. The player you took a card from now draws a new one from the deck. Then the person who played baby, me in this example, puts one of the 2 cards they're now holding on top of the deck. When the player you targeted goes to redraw their hand, if the deck is empty, they take the backstage card instead. And then the person playing baby would put one of the 2 cards from their hand into the backstage instead of on top of the deck. Here we have Abby. There are 2 copies of this character in the deck, and their effect is quite unique. We've seen many characters that have effects which target another player and make them do something. Well, rather than play Abby on your turn, you can play him when an opponent targets you with a card effect on their turn. As it says here, when an opponent chooses you for an effect, you may discard Abby from your hand to cancel it, and then you draw a new card from the deck. But also, if the effect that Abby canceled was a Huntrix card, you would advance the contest marker one space towards your team's side. We've seen that some effects can target any player, but Abby only cancels effects when an opponent would target you. If someone on your own team targets you with an effect, Abby cannot be used to cancel it. If an opponent targets you with Bobby's effect, you can wait until after they've guessed a number before playing Abby. That means even if they guessed correctly, Bobby's effect will do nothing. If you played Abby to cancel an effect, you draw a card from the deck after, but if the deck is empty, take the backstage card instead. Normally, you'll want to play Abby on an opponent's turn to cancel the effect they're targeting you with, but you can also pick to play Abby as the character you discard on your own turn. If you do that, it just goes in front of you. Nothing is canceled, and you don't get to draw from its effect. Next up, we have Rumi. There's only 1 copy of this character, and when you play her, if your team has 4 or more Huntrix cards in their discard areas, you immediately earn a cheer token. So as an example, if I chose to play Rumi, I'd now count all of the Huntrix cards in my discard area and in the discard area of my teammates, counting Rumi herself. So in this case, we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4 Huntrix characters, which is 4 or more, so according to this effect, we would gain a cheer token. Anytime you gain one of these cheer tokens, flip it to your team's side and put it by your end of the contest board into one of the 5 empty spaces there. So for the Huntrix player, they'd go here, and for the Saja boys, they'd go here. We'll see more ways you can earn these later. But if playing Rumi would give you your 5th cheer token, meaning you'd have no more empty spaces on your end of the board, the game immediately ends and your team wins. Here's Jinu, and we've put him side by side with Rumi because his effect works the same way, except after playing him, you check to see if your team has 4 or more Saja boys in their discard areas. If so, you gain a cheer token. And I think it's important to point out, You do not have to be on the Saja Boys team to gain the benefit of this effect, or on the Huntrix team to gain the benefit of this effect. For example, you could be on the Huntrix team when you play this, and if you and your teammates have 4 or more Saja Boys in their discard areas, then your team gains a Huntrix cheer token. Okay, with that we've gone over all the characters except the fan, which we'll come back to in a moment. But I just want to point out, your team reference card will list all of the different characters, summarize their effects, and remind you of their values and how many copies there are of each one. So remember, on your turn, you first draw a card, then pick one of the cards you're holding to put into your discard area, resolving its effect. Then the next person in clockwise order takes their turn. And turns will continue like this until the round ends in one of 2 possible ways. One is if the deck is empty when a player would need to draw at the start of their turn. They do not draw from the backstage, the game just immediately ends. You only take from the backstage in the cases I previously described. When the deck is empty at the start of a player's turn, everyone reveals and compares the card they are holding. The person holding the highest valued card in their hand moves the contest marker 1 space towards their team's side of the board. And remember, if that player has the bonus token in a game with 3 or 5 players, they would move it 1 extra space. If players on opposing teams were tied for having the highest valued card, then the marker would not move. Either way, the team with their symbol under the marker's current position now earns the amount of cheer tokens shown at that location, either 1, 2, or 3. So 2 tokens in this case. And as we saw, when you earn cheer tokens, flip them to your team's side and put them on your end of the board. With that understood, we can now explain this fan effect. When you play this on your turn, you must add it to a teammate's discard area. You cannot add it to your own. And that's why these are not included in games with 2 or 3 players, because there'll be teams with only 1 player. When a round ends, because the deck has run out, when checking to see who has the highest valued card, each fan in a player's discard area adds +1 to the value of the card they are holding. So if the game ended and I had these 2 fans in my discard area, the value 7 card I was holding in my hand is now worth 2 more for a total of 9. That said, there is another way the round can end. While playing, if at any time a team needs to move the contest marker towards their team's side, but it's already on the 3 space, then it moves off the track, the round immediately ends, and that team earns 3 cheer tokens. When that happens, players do not compare the cards they're still holding. The round just ends and the 3 cheer tokens are awarded. However a round ends, if a player has this bonus token, they can now choose to give it to another person on their team if they want, just before the next round begins. As long as no team has a total of 5 cheer tokens, you now start a new round by gathering all of the cards from wherever they are, including the backstage one, and shuffling them into a new deck, dealing 1 into the backstage, and then giving 1 to each player. You also put the contest marker back onto its starting space here. Then you play a new round, starting with the person seated to the left of the player who took the last turn in the previous round. And rounds will continue like this until a team has gained 5 or more cheer tokens. As soon as that happens, that team has won the crowd over and wins the game. And that's everything you need to know to play KPop Demon Hunters Battle for the Spotlight. If you have any questions about anything you saw here, feel free to put them in the comments below, and I'll gladly answer them as soon as I get a chance. You'll also find forums for discussion, pictures, other videos, and lots more over on the games page at Board Game Geek, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. And if you found this video helpful, please consider giving it a like, subscribing, and clicking that little bell icon so you get notification anytime I post a new video. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can join the Patreon team, which I'll have linked below. But until next time, thanks for watching.